Welcome to another round of panel sessions at our BLISTER Summit. I'm looking forward to this one because I really like all these people. Unlike some of the people on the other panel sessions we have, where I'm a little iffy on some of those, but I'll let you just think about who that might be. This one we have called Athletes in Entrepreneurship. And our hope here today is to, well, one, hear some very interesting stories from these three individuals, but I think we're going to get to a spot where whether it is for some young people who are aspiring athletes or those who have been around in the industry a bit, I think there are going to be some interesting perspectives gained tonight about really what it means to be a professional athlete today, because I think that is changing quite a bit, actually. So that is our topic, and we're going to, of course, again, open it up to questions, so, be thinking of those good ones. But for now, I would love to have our panelists introduce themselves, starting with McKenna, and tell us a little bit about some of the different things that you have done under this, that might fall under this rubric of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, okay. I'm McKenna Peterson. I'm a professional skier from Sun Valley, Idaho. I am also a commercial fisherman in the summer. I fish for salmon in Southeast Alaska. And also within my athlete role with K2 Skis, I've spent a lot of time on the product design and development side. Chris?
Nice, McKenna. I'm Chris Davenport. Met a lot of you last night and on the Hill the last couple days. I told a story last night about being a 13-year-old kid on the chairlift at Attitash, New Hampshire, and talking to my friend and just wanting to ski every day for the rest of our lives, and that I'm doing that. And I think that was I didn't know it at the time, but that was that light bulb of entrepreneurship of how am I going to figure that out? And we'll get to this later on in the conversation, but I just think back to that moment of wow, you can actually make your own path in life and no one has to make it for you. I didn't know it at the time again, but I think back on it now and I was already set on that path, and very excited to be sitting beside McKenna and Julian, two very good friends. Julian, let's hear your story.
Well, just being up here with McKenna and Dav is pretty cool. I'm a professional skier. I've founded Discreet Clothing, actually sold that last year after 12 years, which was a really fun project. And founded Cirque Series mountain races, and that's a really fun project to be in the summer, up in the same high alpine that I love being in. And I actually started a classic Ford Bronco restoration business, so it's outside of the outdoor industry, which has been kind of fun because, like Chris said, he knew he wanted to be a professional skier, carve that path, whatever professional skier meant. And I think I'm pretty similar with that. And now it's fun because I can be in the mountains year round as a professional skier, and in the summer race directing the Cirque Series mountain races. So we'll dive into a whole bunch more, but I think the common denominator is you can't really let other people define what you're trying to do. Because I remember the first year I tried to get ski sponsors, I heard way more no's than yeses, and in the back of my mind I was they're making a mistake, and that's the thing. I was man, if people just listen to other people trying to define what you're capable of or what you're interested in, whether that's being a professional skier or what kind of business you're involved with or want to create, you have to define that, because if you listen to other people, you're not going to get very far if you let other people define you.
Let me ask you all, I made a bit of an assumption that I said being a professional athlete today seems to me to be pretty different from, let's say, I don't know, how far back we go, 5 years, 10 years, 15 or so. Does that resonate with you? Or are you I'm not sure that I noticed that much difference or that much has evolved actually? What are your thoughts on that? Take it, Chris.
I will just start by saying that as professional athletes, we're not in team sports. We don't have a league. We don't have a team. We do have partners, sponsors that, but there's no one telling you, here's your schedule for the entire year. You have to be very independent. You have to be very ambitious and creative and come up with things that are going to work for all of the partners that you work with, all the sponsors that you work with. So I'm not sure that that's really changed that much, to be honest. It was, and I will say I'm the oldest of the three panelists. My first professional, or wasn't even professional at the time, my first competition as an athlete was right here in Crested Butte, the U.S. Extreme Skiing Championships in 1994. And I had grown up ski racing with and gone to college with an athlete, a skier named Shane McConkey. You guys probably know a lot about Shane, legend. And he called me up after we graduated from CU. I graduated, he didn't. He had gone on to do a bunch of mogul skiing. But he's like, Chris, we're going down to the U.S. Extreme Skiing Championships in Crested Butte. You should come. And I was like, what's that? I just come out of ski racing. I didn't really know this new world of, and he's like, it's this new thing that's going on. It's called extreme skiing. I don't even, that's what it was called. He didn't even say big mountain skiing or free skiing. He just said extreme skiing. I'm like, sounds awesome. And I came down here in February of 94, literally, whatever that is, do the math, 30 or 29 years ago, 28 years ago, and did this contest right here on a lot of the runs that we skied today. And the light bulbs were literally going off for me, like, I found my people. This is so cool. This terrain is what I want to do. And so that sort of set me on a path. I kind of veered off your question right there, but like discovering something that you're passionate about, and then all of a sudden you open up your mind and you have some vision of like, wow, this could be a thing. And I think all of us have seen that.
On that point, and to your point about how the industry has changed, I have the exact same story, but from 2007. Here, Crested Butte Extremes, a good ski racing friend of mine called me up and said, hey, this competition's happening, we gotta try it out. And my ski racing career was kind of going downhill. It's like, all right, sure, I'll try something new. Sparked in my brain, and that was the path I ended up taking. So, awesome. Same story.
Nice.
How many years later?
Several.
Yeah, a couple.
I can add on that as far as the landscape of like professional skiing, I think 10, 15 years ago, it was kind of your responsibility to get fit into the traditional landscape of ski media or snow media, which was movies, magazines, and competitions. So you had to be very relevant and get plugged into like an MSP movie or a TGR, or make sure you're shooting with the right photographers. And these days, those three platforms are still very relevant and important. But what's very cool, and that like Chris inspired a lot of, I think, inventing your own path, being your own good at production. I mean, the guy made 2 coffee table books of like amazing physical feats that were creative in themselves, but then to make a production out of it was so next level. But now these days you have to do the social media, you have to be able to self-produce. There's so many ways you can self-generate visibility that some athletes exist solely on that. They're not plugged in traditionally anymore. But if you can do traditional and be good at self-generating your productivity, then you're really smooth sailing at that point.
I love Julian's point, because there's this whole new world of social media influencers that become well known through posting things on the internet. And oftentimes it's not really walking the walk. It's more like talking the talk. And have they really done things that have gotten them like winning events or having great film segments? I don't know. We won't go down the social media rabbit hole, but it is something that's omnipresent in the pro athlete, pro skier, I think all pro athlete life. Like, where do I draw the line between, I love skiing, I love being on the hill, I want to be out there, and then do I come home and have to like generate a bunch of social media? That's a new thing.
Yeah.
And we all know athletes that have kind of made a bit of a small career out of just being social stars.
Sure. I'll say that I resonate more with like the people that are, kind of transcending the boundary of like what's possible, like the high level athletes. That's what I love to follow. And I'll say for like the influencers, or if you want to call them that maybe are like low level to mid ability physically, I think a lot of people can, there's always been the debate, like how are these guys developing these giant followings and becoming relevant or whatever. But I guess to their defense, I say that maybe there's some people that want to align, maybe not with top level athletes that are on that boundary. Some people might be like, hey, I like this person's voice. I like their story. They're really personal. They disclose a lot. Maybe they're, resonating with a new audience that for different reasons. So that's why I think it's kind of cool that some of those people that maybe have never been on an athletic team or has never had success ski racing or been a part of a movie or anything, suddenly they have this audience paying attention to them and they like disclose who they are, and people are like, I like this human. They're like not really doing anything at a high level, but I like them. So kind of like to their defense, I'm like, for some people I can get why these influencers that maybe are questionable, it's like, well, they're resonating with people for a different reason, and I'm not going to judge them for that,
I think that's a cool thing about our industry these days. I think that the social media platforms have given us all the opportunity to tell our own story and have our own voice by our own means. You don't have to fit into a mold. You don't have to do things the way that everybody had done it before you. You just go out there and be you.
So maybe that's one of the things that's changed maybe the most, is there's just more avenues and channels and maybe opportunities to be creative, as opposed to a more narrow traditional path of you gotta kind of go through these, these are the gatekeepers. There's a lot more open gates, or gates that are low and one can jump over, maybe, whatever the metaphor would be there. Yeah.
Well, I think I mentioned Chris doing his books. I mean, like one of the coolest things going on in skiing right now is Cody trying to knock off the 50, and obviously he's a part of even creating that like 15 years ago.
So awesome.
Yeah, and him making the 54, the 14ers, making a book out of it, all that. My claim to fame, I always say, my favorite photo I've ever had published, I have a photo, 6 a.m. sunrise on Mount Superior in the 50 Classics. So yes, I'm always like, I made it. But I always got to say, I've just admired and respected Chris so much for his ability to be creative and self-produce. Like, I'm always looking at him for inspiration because I try to emulate that. And I'm always like, hey, if Chris is out there killing it, then I still have plenty of ceiling, because he's kind of setting the benchmark, and it's very cool to watch front row seat and to call him a friend now.
That's really kind of you, Julian. High five. Yes. And by the way, for the raffle tonight, there is a 50 Classics book in there. So hopefully one of you will win it. I will sign it for you. And just speaking of entrepreneurship, coming up with ideas of like, hey, I could do this list of peaks, whether it's climbing and skiing all the 54 14ers, or, and I did a book about that, and that was really successful. And I went, wow, okay, books are good. What's the next thing? Hey, how about a list of 50 classic ski descents in North America? Talk to some friends about kind of helping me put that together, and it's been one of the most remarkable things that I've ever done. And I didn't even see that when we first started, but it sold really well. It's a beautiful book. You'll see it. And then our good friend Cody Townsend decided, and he kind of secretly told me in 2017 in Portillo, Chile, hey, I'm going to try to ski all the peaks in your book. And I was like, yes, high five, because I love you, and you're the guy to do it. But also, we're going to sell a shitload more books. And we did. But again, this is the spirit of entrepreneurship, is like, have an idea, have a vision, put it out there, take a little bit of risk. None of this happens without some risk, right? We're all risk managers. That's kind of what we do for a living. And you just put it out there, and if your heart is there, as you just said, you do the right thing, it's pays off. And it's happened with a lot of our friends and athletes in their careers. It's really cool to see.
Let me ask you all, in terms of product development with some of the brands you've worked with, are you being asked to do more in terms of feedback that you're offering on product development than you used to, or has that always been a significant part of, I know we're just talking about you three in particular, but has that evolved, or has that always looked pretty similar for the three of you over your careers?
Well, with me, it's definitely a lot more now. I feel like I've had a lot to learn over the years. I've been working with K2 for 9 years now. So it's been kind of a long road. Steps have been taken, and I feel that I play a bigger role today than I did 7-8 years ago in the product design and development. And then a big part of that's also my desire to be a part of it. You know, K2 asks, but it's also a passion of mine, and it's something that I've really enjoyed learning about and being a part of the process.
I would agree with McKenna 100%. One of the coolest things that we get to do by virtue of being sponsored athletes is have inside info or ability to build product. I go back to the first things that I did with Solomon, the AK rocket ski, then the pocket rocket ski, the X Scream ski. Again, we're going back in time, you know. But those were like, holy shit, I'm helping test and design a ski. Like, this is so cool. And that led to just wanting to do more. In more recent times, I've done a bunch of ski boots with Scarpa, including the Freedoms, the F1, and now the new Quattro, which I've been skiing on, but you guys will all see soon. And that's stuff that gets me so excited, because it's like a culmination of your entire life experience in the mountains, and then sitting down with designers and engineers to build this vision. It's a gift. It's a gift, and I think we all take it pretty seriously.
Yeah, I've been involved with quite a bit of that over my career. I think like the good side and the bad side is, like, sometimes I've put a lot of energy into certain projects only to have like a supply chain complication, or the reps didn't resonate with it, even though you're like trying to be progressive with the brand, but the rep force was kind of more old school. But most recently with like Icelandic skis, I helped produce the Saba like pro model. So it was really fun to put direct input into something and see like immediate results and have it ski awesome, you know. And other projects are always more part of like a greater, hey, what direction should we take our products, you know, instead of being like, hey, we're doing this one product, let's do it. So it's been fun to be part of it, both the good and the bad.
I think we might open questions up to you all here in just a second, but I'm going to sneak one more in at least. We were just talking before the start of this panel, and was this Chris who said, wait, was it McKenna or Chris? But somebody, one of you all were like, you should ask, what's the one entrepreneurial thing you haven't done yet that you might like to? And I was like, well, that's a really good question. I should put one of you in this seat. What comes to mind? So I reframed it a little bit. I softened it a little bit. But what's one entrepreneurial thing you haven't done yet that you might like to?
I'll mention mine real quick, and I've actually picked Chris's brain a little bit. My original concept, I wanted to make a coffee table book called the 100 Club, and all it is an amazing, high-end, beautiful display of all the 100-foot cliffs hit in skiing, and there'd be a first-hand account of each cliff from the athlete and the photographer. And as I started to try and collect images from skiers I knew, like usual, you know, when we all go out and we ski and it's pow and you hit like, you know, a cliff and you're like, oh, I hit a 40-footer. And so when I got all these images in, you know, 40 feet's huge. So when people say 40, it's probably 25-footer. So I got all these 100-foot images from some of these homies out there. And I'm like, bro, this is a 60-footer, man. Like, come on. So I was like, shit, I got to scrap this. I know, it was still impressive, but I was like, this isn't going to work. And so now I still want to do the book, we'll just call it like the Cliff Book or Cliff Notes or something, and have it be like just beautiful cliff imagery from all of skiing, and with really nice context, really nice writing, really classy, and give it like artistry that it deserves. Because cliff jumping, to me is like a very meditative state of mind, and believe it or not. So it'd be fun to share that with the world instead of just the Mountain Dew perception of big cliffs. So that's one I definitely have on my to-do list.
I love that idea, and I've got a few for you.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
You need to do
but
this
the
to
writing
happen.
behind the scenes of the photo.
Yeah.
Like, what does it take to get to a moment where you stand on top of something that's 100 feet or more and go, that's 10 stories, a 10-story building, and you're going to send it on skis into a landing. I've had a couple of those. They're some of the most intense moments in my life, and they're when it's all said and done and you're in one piece, you're like, yes. And then you're like yelling at the photographer, did you get it? Yeah.
I'm not doing it again.
Jonathan, it's a great question.
Thanks. I think it was yours. So thank you.
Yeah. I just think we're entrepreneurs. We're always thinking of like, what's next? Like, what can we do? I told you this story again last night about being 13 years old on the ski area in New Hampshire. My grandfather had built a cabin in 1946 or 48 in North Conway near Mount Cranmore, and was involved as an owner of Mount Cranmore, New Hampshire. My dad grew up skiing there, and then he became involved as an owner of Attitash, New Hampshire. So I kind of grew up in this ski resort world and skiing, and I always thought it would be so cool to be a ski area owner operator. I don't want to be like a big mega resort guy, but I wanted to just, so from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I want to start my own ski area. Maybe it's a backcountry ski area. Maybe it has one lift. I mean, I love the Brills and what they've done in Silverton. Something just core and just for real skiers and snowboarders without all the fluff. That's my entrepreneurial dream.
I love it. I thought you were going to be mayor of Aspen next. Or is that later?
Yeah, but that's that's just you
That
get your ass kicked every day, and it's not really entrepreneurial. It's a county commissioner.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, Jonathan, if I told you all of my ideas, I would have to kill you.
Wow. Yeah. Don't you do that. But maybe, I don't know what to say right now.
No, I have, right now I'm thinking about, I have some ideas on how to influence and contribute to avalanche education. So I'm going to be working on that for the next few years of my career, I believe.
McKenna, are you doing the Safe As clinics? Is that?
No, I'm not,
Oh.
but those are great clinics.
But you're going to do your own thing.
I want to, not my own thing of that sort,
Okay.
but
Cool.
something similar.
I want to support you in that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think we all need to give back to the world we live in, which is really, really, really dangerous, and people lose their lives, and we're all still here for one reason or another, and I think that's a really noble idea.
I liked McKenna's position on that, which was not saying too much, because I also feel like, there's something that's like, show me, don't tell me. So usually when you're trying to track towards a project, it is nice to move in the shadows and to, if you do need to, reach out and get a lot of conversation and dialogue going to generate the energy for your idea, great. But it's also great to just show people with results too sometimes.
Right.
Questions from some of you. So I'm going to try to repeat the question. So the question was, can you talk about an experience where one time you tried to advocate for yourself and that worked out, and maybe another time where for whatever reason, some of the brands or partnerships you have, you were told not this time?
When I decided to stop competing on the Free Skiing World Tour, my ski and boot sponsor at the time told me that I would no longer be valuable to them. And I was ready to retire, so I retired, and I actually bought a pair of Salomon Rocker 2s, skied on those for a year. Super fun. Bought all my own gear, even though I had kind of broken into the pro skier thing. That experience kind of shut me down, and I just bought gear and went and skied every day, had a bunch of fun, and then my next ski sponsor came along and found me, and that worked out much for the better.
Before COVID, I was trying to expand my race series to Europe, and I put a ton of energy into developing a race there and jumped through all the hoops, and everything was green light, and then ultimately got shut down because of a kind of just a weird hurdle. There was a relationship between the resort and the, I guess, Forest Service equivalent. So it was a bummer, but it was kind of a blessing in disguise because I would have had to cancel it anyway after putting all that energy into it because of COVID. And now, fast forward 2 more years later, we're pulling off our first European race this summer in Engelberg, which is one of my favorite places to ski. So, yeah, it's one of those things where it was such a bummer at the time, but you never know what the future is going to bust out for you.
Yeah, going back in time, after competing on the Free Skiing World Tour and making movies for a dozen years, I was kind of over it and jaded a little bit and wanted to find something new and different to do. And out on a bike ride in September, thinking about the coming year and goal setting, just out on this ride, I was riding along and like the word 14ers came in my head. It's like, oh, the Colorado 14ers, right? Like, okay, skiing. Started thinking about that. Like only one person's ever done it, and he's a big mentor of mine, Lou Dawson. It took him, I can't remember how many years, 12 or 14 years to do it. I was like, well, I wonder if I could ski all the 14ers in a year. Wow, what a cool idea. And I like upped my pace on the bike ride, came back home and like ran to the kitchen to tell my wife, like, I got this awesome idea. I'm going to try to climb and ski all the 14ers in a year, in a season. And she's like, that is so dangerous and stupid. You're trying to reduce your risk. And, but I went to my sponsors at the time and I said, I have this idea. I want to ski mountaineer all these peaks in Colorado. None of them got it. Nobody understood what it was. It was not, what's the word, en vogue of the time. Like people were just like, so I really got no support. I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to do this thing. I put some of my own money into it, and I'm going to climb and ski these peaks. And as it got going, I was blogging. We were posting photos online. It was like before social media, but the internet was there. And people started paying attention. And then it started, really snowballing and getting more and more people watching and people commenting and people interacting. And at the end of it, it sort of became like one of the coolest projects I'd ever done and kind of launched this idea of athlete project. And actually Red Bull, I'm the longest running Red Bull athlete in North America. They still use that project as this sort of like marquee, like come up with an idea that no one else has thought of, just do it regardless of what people care and see where it goes. And that's kind of an example of that. So yeah, it was pretty awesome to just kind of, again, have some kind of vision that's just personal, but then see it translate into something that helps grow the sport, turn backcountry skiing and ski mountaineering and product development. Because I was skiing on free cheese and, alpine skis. And within a couple of years, everybody started really investing, including Solomon, into the products that we now get to ride, which is incredible.
Sam? So the question was, what do you all think the future is for production companies and major media?
I mean, I wish that the TGRs and the MSPs would just keep killing it, or, the Sherpas. But the reality is there's not a ton of money that's infused into these companies, and usually they just set a benchmark what they're capable of, and then they get hired for Dodge commercials that actually pay. So it's tough. I think we'll keep seeing that, though. I think we'll keep seeing creatives that want to flex what they are capable of. And I think this industry has so many amazing creative souls, and it's obviously skiing and snowboarding is so beautiful. I think we'll always see very strong creatives. I don't think we're just going to see that kind of continuity that we're used to, though.
I kind of have a hard time with that because I don't want to be necessarily thinking about my season as like, how do I get the Dodge commercial? How do I get this big stuff that's getting tons of exposure? Like, I just want to be skiing every day, but still, be authentic and organic and like creative. So I think it's a fine line. It's a balance. Like, I don't know. I don't necessarily want to be like spending my entire winter trying to reach some like unattainable goal of some Hollywood type of skiing. We could do a lot more just within our own community And so I think the human stories, the authentic stories that we can tell either on our own or with partners in small short films, like just as an example, what our good friend Cody Townsend is doing with the 50 Project, that's amazing. It's great. It's so just authentic, and it's him being himself and trying to climb and ski beautiful mountains. Stuff like that really resonates with me.
Yeah, I don't think big media, big production companies are going to fully go away from skiing ever. And when you think about it right now, there are so many kids out there with cameras making cool content. They're just going to get better. They're going to get more money. They're going to get more expensive equipment. They're going to be the next big media companies. And then they probably will get away from skiing and snowboarding. But that's where their heart and soul is. So they're not going to fully leave. And there will always be people like that. So it'll stay. Big media, big production in our industry will always be there.
Let's go back of the room. So next question is, can you tell us in hard times, is there a life experience you've had that you look back on, draw on to kind of help you weather those, difficult times of life?
I don't quite have a specific life experience to draw on through the hard times, but I will say that the passion and the love are what get you through everything. Even when you do come face to face with those hardships and have to pull yourself up to keep going, it's the passion and the love for what you're doing that keeps you going. You're going to be doing it no matter what happens. That's all.
I think as an entrepreneur, you constantly have to create resources kind of out of nothing. So I think when maybe you're presented with a hurdle or something that looks difficult, I think that's oftentimes when you become most resourceful. And that's as an entrepreneur. I think my inspiration is like a skier, professional athlete. I started skiing in 8th grade. First movie I saw was Extreme Skiing 3, Scott Schmidt's story. And I thought everybody was hitting cliffs, and like I skateboarded a lot. So I was like, man, you can just cruise around, do what you want like you do during the skate line and hit big cliffs. And I love gymnastics. I love foam pits. And I just remember seeing that movie, getting an autographed poster as a kid, and then fast forward being in Warren Miller movies and seeing those same 8th grade kids that are like now getting a poster from me. Like that's all the inspiration I'll ever need, is that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And my answer is family. I've got three boys. My wife is a 30-year ski patroller on Aspen Mountain, and I just love skiing with my family. My boys are all older. They all ski race. They all rip big mountain. And that's what motivates me, seeing them come up and love the sport like I did when I was that 13-year-old kid on the chairlift is so awesome. And so passing it down to the next generation, maybe you guys will be there at some point. It is the coolest thing to bring up the next generation of rippers.
So the next question is, all of you have talked about other entrepreneurial pursuits and involvement of yours that isn't really tied to the ski industry at all, whether that's with Revelshine Wines, whether that's with the Cirque series, Julian, and whether it's with commercial fishing. So was that intentional as a way to sort of get a bit of separation from the ski industry, or did it just sort of work out that way?
It's not intentional at all. As a professional skier, you have to hustle. You got to do everything you can to make a living and work hard, and opportunities will come your way. You'll create some of your own, but otherwise you can't survive. We're skiers. It's not a bunch of money in this sport, right? With Revelshine Wines, for instance, the founder of this 4th generation winemaker came to me and was like, I need some help. We got to get in the outdoor industry. Are you willing? I'm like, yes, this is awesome. I like wine. I like the outdoors. Let's do it. So I think we're always all looking for whatever opportunities might be out there on the landscape that speak to our passions and who we are. They're not I would say no to tons of things that aren't me, but at the same time, we're privateers, if you will. We got to like look after ourselves and like build cool opportunities.
Yeah, I'd say with the trail running, it overlaps a lot because I got this pretty cool dog 7-8 years ago that I was usually mountain biking in the summer, and I got this amazing dog. I suddenly was like, I can't really mountain bike with her because it's going to ruin her after a while. She just sprints for 16 miles, even though she loved it as a puppy. So anyway, I started hiking Mount Olympus right by where I lived in Salt Lake, and I was getting in great shape, and I was having a ton of fun. And where you go up, like when you're peak bagging, going up into the kind of the technical peaks, you're kind of in terrain that you definitely can't mountain bike at all. So I was like, this is really cool. And as I'm like hiking up, red line hiking, and really quick agility running down to like really technical stuff, I was like, this is really cool. Like this is not put on your short shorts and go for a run, And I started diving in, really long story short, what similar races there were in mountain running that were like hiking a 6 or 7 mile peak up and down with like 3,000 or 4,000 vert. And I was shocked because there was zero, absolutely zero. There was all the mud runs, Spartans, obstacle course, color runs, all the amazing, great Western States, the Leadvilles, all the amazing ultras, which I was like, props to them. That's not my cup of tea. And then obviously like mom and pop marathons, 10Ks, all that stuff. So in the back of my head, same thing how he said with the 54s, I was like, the 14ers, I was like, I should create my own race series. And it was just such a fleeting thought that just kept stirring around in my head. And, within 2 years, I was in a trip in Iceland, and we were hiking all these amazing couloirs, like right out of the Arctic Ocean. And this one time we hiked up and beautiful view, same thing. You just get so much feeling of like accomplishment and just soul enriching when you hike a peak. And I was like, I'm going to start that race series. And that summer, because trip was in March, so I created the first season of the Cirque series in 2015. And we did 4 races that summer. And actually one of the races we did was here, which was awesome. But I realized I needed to get closer to Denver, so now we do A-Basin. But yeah, 6 years later, 7 races, we're kind of establishing ourselves as like, a really cool short distance, max elevation race series that you hit peaks. And so yeah, it's like an overlap of what I love doing in the winter. But I will quickly say that doing my Bronco restoration business is completely not in the outdoor industry. And I actually go by Blake Bronco. And so I actually have an anonymous personality, and I co-host a National Ford Bronco podcast. And I go to these big Bronco conventions, and everyone knows me as Blake Bronco. So it's actually really fun. It's amazing.
All right, Blake.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked out the Cirque series, highly recommend it. I ran one in 2016 or 2017. It was so much fun. It kicked my ass. Felt great. So check that out if you haven't. And with my career paths, they complement each other, skiing and fishing. So that's why I am in fishing. Fishing's in the summer, skiing's in the winter. They work really well together timeline-wise.
So the question is, do you all feel like athletes have a bit of an obligation to create some more long-form content, maybe some physical books, which we've actually talked a bit about tonight, given that we're in a world of social media where there's so much very short content production?
Rob, thanks for your question. No, I absolutely do not think athletes have an obligation to do these types of things. It's not for everybody to sit and spend 6 months in front of a computer editing and publishing a book. Like, it's really hard, but the rewards are great. But again, it's not for everybody. I would love to see more people doing that because I generally don't like social media as much as I do it. I actually posted a wonderful photo of you today, Jonathan.
Wow.
Yes, the founder of BLISTER, up
Wow.
on the mountain in your element. That made me feel good. But a lot of things we see on social media don't make us feel good. But you know what? When you can write a book or make a video that's going to last over time, yeah, that's pretty awesome. So I personally, and I'm older than the rest, like I like to step away from like this instant gratification of the social channels and do things that are more lasting, I don't know, more gratifying for me.
I do love seeing it, just like he said, as much as anybody. And when people can do it the right way, it's so cool. I think social media is so easy because we all have our phones and we all are interested in people, projects, companies, ideas, news. And for me, like social media isn't like this poisonous thing. It's like a natural extension of your personality that you can disclose as much of your personal life as you want to or not. And it's the most relevant marketing platform on the planet. So if you can look at that as a professional and be like, sweet, it's a relevant marketing platform. I can disclose as much of my personal life as I want to. And you can control that narrative and not have it be poisonous. I feel like too many people are quick to label social media as like this problem. It's like, to me, it's like, it's a relevant marketing platform, like extension of your own personality. Pretty simple to me. It doesn't seem poisonous at all. So that's just my relationship with it. And I can see how obviously there's the flip side of that coin, but I think that there can be a more healthy dialogue put into social media instead of always just being like, barf, you know.
Mm-hmm. Good answer.
And there could also be more long form pieces of content created. I do feel like that's lacking a little bit because so many people see social media as the easy outlet, both on the athlete side and the brand side for what the brands see as valuable. So it'd be nice to see a better balance of the two. I wouldn't say one's better than the other, but it'd be nice to mix it up a little bit.
One more question. Yeah. So the question is, how do you all think about and balance physical risk, given you've talked all about a number of obligations and things you're invested in? If you get hurt, you will not have the ability to do some of those other things. And so how do you balance that? And has that sort of calculus changed over the years?
I can quickly say that it's a great question, that it's like baby steps, you know. Jump off a 5-footer until you're comfortable with it, and then try a 10-footer until you're comfortable with it, and that becomes your comfort zone. And that applies to whatever you're interested in. And so suddenly a 100-foot cliff isn't this quantum leap of just send it. It's no, I'm comfortable with that. And that goes with any kind of parameter that has to deal with safety, your mountain education, your avalanche education, your ability to read and interpret how you're traveling through the mountains, your group dynamic, your professional goals, your strategies, like all these things become just part of like a comfort zone that you really dive into, to the point that, it's not, you don't glaze over any of it. You don't take any of it for granted. It just becomes kind of built in. But I mean, the mountains are huge and crazy, and I know a lot of good decision makers that aren't with us anymore. So it's definitely an intense profession, intense landscape to make these deliberate, decisions that are really intense. But what I can say is they become not less intense, but they become part of like this, you just track towards a comfort level. There's not some quantum leap of just like, oh no, I'm just going to go for it today,
Mental and physical training are a huge part of it. And then just time spent in the mountains. The hours you put in really make a difference in how you approach the day-to-day of being out there. And my personal risk tolerance has lowered as I've gotten older and more experienced.
Hell yeah. I'm so glad to hear McKenna say that, because I went through the exact same process. I feel like I ran the gauntlet of my 20s and early 30s and somehow came out on the other end, somehow still sitting here. As Julian said, so many of our friends are not. And as a young man, I just was all about sending it, and I didn't know about risk management. I didn't know. I mean, I took avalanche courses and I was studying, but I just didn't, in my mind, it was just like push, push, push. And then, there was a time where it slowly turned to being a professional risk manager and actually thinking about risk every day. Even out on the hill today, like looking down, like, okay, we're with a big group. Where's everybody skiing? Oh, there's a bunch of rocks there. Oh, shit. Okay. Like, I literally have gone from the full send mode to like the full safe mode. And I think that's a really, I think it's a normal part of like growing up as a person. You know, we're all young and feel what's the word? Invulnerable? Invincible, thank you. And then you go through some stuff. I mean, I've been in 2 really big avalanches, really big ones, gone for 1,000-foot rides under the snow, in the dark, packed in my face, and come out on top and survived. When you go through that kind of experience, you learn a lot, and you realize like that, you know, life is sweet and you want to keep going, and so you're going to like do everything you can to not have that happen again. Same thing goes for just blowing your knee out. I've had 5 knee surgeries. Still feeling great, but like, you know, I don't really want that to happen again. You know, it's a pain in the ass. Kind of, you lose part of your season, you got to like get surgery. So you get smarter and you get better at managing risk and thinking about risk. And that's actually the reason that I love being a guide. I do 50% of my winter is guiding skiers around the world. And I love that because I can push their boundaries, but I'm still well within my own, and that's a very safe place, I think. So I love that question because we're still evolving. Like we're still thinking about our skiing. We're still, you know, growing as athletes and as skiers and learning. We're always learning, and so I feel like I'll never give up that idea of like getting better and being safer and being smarter. Thanks.
Thank you all. This was a good crew to talk about these topics with, and you know, I look forward to seeing the next things you all get, you know, up to, and you don't have to kill me now because you didn't reveal too much. But no, thank you, and I think this has been really helpful, and I honestly am thinking a lot about up and coming athletes. And I look forward to them hearing this conversation and processing a bit of what you all have been talking about tonight. And it's been fascinating for, I think, the rest of us. But I think some, you know, young folks hearing this, what you've all just said is probably going to make a pretty meaningful impact in terms of how they're thinking about some of the coming years and potential trajectories. So thank you very much.